You might be wondering how I made out after the floods and the mudslides in the area. I wasn't affected. Where I live, which is several miles from the fire zone, I actually live west of Santa Barbara. All the damage and the problems that was east of Santa Barbara, I had no problems here. I live in an area where we're fairly high up. We're not on top of a foothill, but we are on a rise of land, and the park where I live is slanted somewhat. So if there is any heavy rain, it just runs down the streets in the park. The streets are set up for drainage, and then out the front of the park, down the main avenue, and then there's a big drainage canal just down the street, maybe half a block, and that drains out to the ocean. So there were no drainage problems here. The big problem for me was the wind, because wind will keep me awake. I can sleep through heavy rain, but wind always keeps me awake because I worry about damage. And the morning after the storm, I went around my home and looked at my home, mostly the awnings, because those are the most vulnerable when there's high winds. There wasn't enough wind to damage any of my awnings. And I checked my neighbor's home too, because he's out of town until next week. So he asked me to keep an eye on his place. As far as rain, we didn't get that much rain here. It was really kind of strange because I looked at the radar. I always watch the radar and I watch the movement. Is it going to be moving in? What's coming into the area? And it was circulating around the area where I live, and it was almost like we were in the eye of a hurricane. I mean, it wasn't a hurricane, but the low literally moved right overhead, and it was just, you could see the rain circling around us. We only got the first 24 hours 1.4 inches of rain. Whereas some areas down in the fire region, there were some stations. I can go online and look at individual stations. Some of those stations reported as much as 6 inches. Overall, in the 3 days of the storm, we accumulated I think it was 2.1. I have the reports right here. I always print up the reports. This is the 3-day report. Where I live, 2.17. So less than 2.25 inches of rain over the 3 days. That's not bad. That's not bad. There was one report I saw on TV that said that in the fire area, part of the fire area, they got it as much as, they recorded 1/2 inch of rain in 15 minutes. That's a lot of rain. It was a massive downpour in an area that had burned out. So there was no vegetation to hold on to anything. The debris just came down, and that was where all the damage was. It was below the fire area. Some people lost their lives. So far, the number is 18, and there's still 18 missing. The report that I saw this morning, that number of casualties could double in the next few days. Here, the effect is virtually nothing as far as me. You won't hear any trains, for example, going through my videos. I'm doing a cooking video later today. I decided to use my Instant Pot to make something I'm going to call spontaneous stew. I'm not going to work with a recipe. I'm just going to throw things in the pot, use a good chicken stock. It should be fine. But you won't hear any trains because the train tracks. The Amtrak is closed through this area because of the debris covering the tracks. Down in the Montecito area, the freeway is also closed down there. So there's very light traffic on the freeway going through because there's no way to get all the way down through the area into Los Angeles. They have to go around, take Highway 5 down. The problem with the freeway being closed down there is that there are a lot of people who work in this town who live out of town. The ones who are coming from up north, no problem. But the people who live down south, they can't get to work. And the freeway, from what I could see this morning, won't be opened until this weekend. Amtrak is estimating that they're going to start running trains on Monday through the area if they can get everything cleaned up and ready. They can get the debris off the road and off the tracks. The problem is they have to clean out all of the drainage channels under the freeway and under the tracks, and not just in that area, but all the way down to the ocean, because if the water can't escape. It just backs up and flows over the freeway, flows over the tracks. That's the problem. So they can clear up the freeway pretty quickly. It's getting all those channels cleared up because the hills are still draining. There's still water coming down from those hills. Not a lot now, but it's still draining. The water's got to go somewhere. It has to have somewhere to go. So they need to clear out those channels. As far as any other effects in this area, we're fine. We're fine. There's no immediate damage here. No, I went around and visited some of my neighbors. They were all doing well. One of them, she asked me, "Did you take your camera down to the area to film the destruction?" I told her, "No, that area is closed. If you go in that area and you're stopped by the police and you can't show them that you live there, that you belong there, they'll give you a fine. They'll fine you for being in that area because it's a closed area." They're doing rescue and recovery down there. They don't want any looky-loos in that area hampering their recovery work and the cleanup work. So no, I didn't bring my camera down. And what's the point? There's a lot of coverage in the news and on TV. In fact, the local TV station, the day after the storm, they had 24-hour, nonstop, commercial-free coverage of what was going on down in the Montecito, Santa Barbara area. And it was pretty devastating. There was one video that I saw. I don't know what happened to the people. I'll give you a couple of stories. He was on his porch yelling at a car that was coming up the street, "Turn around, turn around. The mud flow is coming, the mudslide is coming, turn around, turn around." And the car did it. It got out of the area, it headed back. But just as soon as it started heading back down the road, you could see this wall of debris and water coming down the street. I don't know whether that car got out in time or not. It's hard to outrun some of these things. And the camera, you could just see it juggling as he got in the house and probably got his family up to the second floor because their home filled with water. Another story that I saw, these people reported that they had their car loaded up. They were ready to go. They were ready to evacuate it on short notice. But you don't get much notice when there's a mudslide. It happens in seconds. And when they heard the noise and they saw the water coming and saw the water filling their home, they went out their front door and they saw their packed cars being washed down the street. So one of the questions that came up was, these people were in a mandatory evacuation area. Why didn't they leave? And it's because they've never been through anything like this before. They didn't know what to expect. When there's a fire, they know and they get out because they know how devastating fires can be and the number of people that can be killed, houses destroyed, and they have plenty of warning. They can tell when there's fire, but when it's a rapid debris flow like that bang, it happens just like that. There's no warning. My brother lives in Florida. He and his wife live in Florida. And during the hurricane season down there, when they were announcing that hurricane was approaching, the freeways were packed with cars leaving out of state. And my brother wasn't in an evacuation zone, but a lot of people were. And one of the commentaries about that was that these people know, they've been through enough hurricanes that they know how devastating it can be. And when the evacuation warning is announced, they get out. They leave as early as they can. Even Dean, my brother, he filled up his car with gasoline and he was ready to go had they been told to evacuate. But where he lives, they were not in an evacuation area and they didn't have any problems. They didn't suffer any damage from the hurricane. So in this case down here in Montecito, a lot of people stayed because they didn't know how bad it could get. So again, a fire, they know, they get out. But storm, rain, floods, mudslides, they don't know. They've never been through anything like that before. So a lot of them stayed. And unfortunately, there's been a lot of damage there. And the death toll so far has been pretty high. So that's what's happening with me. I'm fine. I'm dry. My roof doesn't leak. I had no damage at all from the winds. We didn't have a lot of rain here, oddly enough. It was so weird looking at the radar. It's like, well, where are we? We in the eye of a hurricane? It wasn't raining here, which is fine with me. We got enough rain that my landscaping was watered. That's all I really care about. I don't need to see a lot of rain coming down, pouring down the street. It floods so much sometimes that it actually pours through my yard. Um, None of that here. We're safe, and all is well. So if you've been concerned about me because you know that I live near the fire zone, nothing to worry about. I'm fine. It's the people who are further east that suffered all of the loss. So it's sad. It's sad for them, but we're thankful where I live. So thank you for listening. And if you like my vlogs, please subscribe.